Can suffering forge a mind stronger than steel? Can enduring life's harshest trials truly transform the soul and arm it with wisdom that outlasts empires? There was once a man who began life not on a throne, but in shackles. He would become a teacher to emperors, a beacon to philosophers, and a living answer to the timeless question: are we defined by our circumstances, or do we define ourselves? Today, we journey into the life and teachings of Epictetus, the slave who became the master of wisdom. Let's uncover the secret of his unbreakable philosophy and explore why, even now, nearly 2,000 years after his death, his ideas still carry the power to liberate minds. Welcome back to Mind Like Marble, where we carve out the bedrock truths of philosophy for everyday life. Yesterday we set out the blueprint of Stoicism, a philosophy that teaches resilience, acceptance, and inner strength. Today, we meet a man who showed, not just with words but through his very existence, that external chains never truly imprison the mind. This is Epictetus. Epictetus was born in the mid-1st century AD, deep within the heart of the Roman Empire, a world swirling with conquests, emperors, and extremes of privilege and poverty. But his beginning was not in a noble house or scholarly hall. Epictetus was born a slave. His earliest memories were not of freedom, but of obedience. The walls of his master's house were his world. There, every moment, every small pleasure or pain, every freedom or cruelty belonged not to him but to another. Legends tell us that Epictetus suffered great physical pain in these early years. Some say his master was cruel and crippled one of his legs, leaving him disabled for life. Whether or not the story is literal, it captures an essential truth. Epictetus's body bore the scars of suffering and oppression, and yet, those who later met him often remarked upon his serene, almost joyful presence. How could a person subjected to so much pain remain unbroken? Where most would be crushed, Epictetus's spirit seemed, if anything, to grow fiercer. Rather than ask, "Why has this happened to me?" he asked, "What is truly mine? What lies within my own power?" Many people spend their lives striving for things they cannot control: fortune, status, the favor of others. But Epictetus understood something different. He realized that although his body could be enslaved, his thoughts, his judgments, and his reactions belonged to him alone. The chain on his ankle could not bind his mind. This insight would change his destiny, and would eventually reach out to change ours. After years in slavery, Epictetus was eventually granted his freedom. For many, this would be the end of the struggle, the point at which a life truly begins. But for Epictetus, liberation was not an arrival. It was the beginning of a lifelong journey toward philosophical mastery. He turned all his energies to the study of philosophy, specifically Stoicism, a school of thought that prized virtue and reason above pleasure or outward success. His core belief was startling in its simplicity, yet revolutionary in its implications. We cannot control external events. We can only control our thoughts and actions. It is not the universe's storms which disturb the soul, he argued, but our opinions about them. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, and entirely within our own imaginative power. Epictetus did not merely study these ideas in dusty books. He lived them, breathed them, brought them to life in the crucible of real hardship and everyday interactions. When others built their self-worth on coin purses or social standing, Epictetus saw these pursuits as cages of another kind. More luxurious, perhaps, but equally restrictive. Instead of chasing things he could lose, he cultivated the only form of wealth that endures: inner freedom. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Imagine a life with this at its very center: fortune and disaster, praise and blame, wealth and poverty. All these can change with the turning of a wheel. But our power of choice, our ability to respond wisely, to maintain self-respect, and to cultivate virtue, this is what is always, unconditionally, ours. Epictetus's journey from slave to philosopher was not just a personal triumph. It was a revolution in the way we think about adversity. To him, every trial was training, every hardship an opportunity to practice courage and self-mastery. Rather than resenting fate, he greeted his challenges as a chance to become the kind of person misfortune could not break. It's tempting to believe that these ideas are easier imagined than lived. But the profound thing about Epictetus is that, in the eyes of his students, he exemplified his own philosophy daily, embracing simplicity, speaking kindly, and bearing both praise and insult with indifference. He became living proof of his unconquerable wisdom. Eventually, word spread throughout the Roman world. Epictetus's wisdom was not the hollow rhetoric of privilege. It was the hard-won truth of a man who had survived at the very bottom and emerged with his soul intact. Students flocked to his school, eager to learn not just from his words but from his example. Among those influenced by Epictetus was a young nobleman named Marcus Aurelius, who would one day wear the purple robes of Rome's emperor. Centuries of tradition separated their stations in life, slave and sovereign, beggar and king, but they were united by the quiet fire of philosophy. Marcus, ruling at the height of Rome's power, turned to Epictetus's works for guidance when facing rebellion, betrayal, and grief. Within the silent pages of the Enchiridion, Epictetus's handbook, the emperor found timeless advice. Distinguish what's in your control from what isn't. Let go of anger at circumstance. Turn every setback into an opportunity for growth. Embrace simplicity, resilience, and, most of all, discipline of mind. Epictetus's teachings were brutally practical. If you want something good, get it from yourself. If you wish to be wise, don't expect life to spare you from misfortune. Expect misfortune to train you for wisdom. The true business of philosophy was to prepare us, in the words of his student Arrian, to endure the blows of fortune without complaint. Life, according to Epictetus, was not meant to be comfortable, but to be meaningful. Every insult could be a test of your patience, every loss, an opportunity to practice letting go. Wealth, beauty, or fame, these could vanish, but virtue once cultivated was yours forever. Epictetus's discipline did not just appeal to scholars. Veterans returned from Roman campaigns with haunted minds. Slaves and freedmen sought dignity, and statesmen burdened with impossible choices all found in Epictetus's words a lifeline. His philosophy spoke to anyone standing at the edge of hardship, fear, or uncertainty. What does it mean to face adversity, not as a tragedy, but as training? Epictetus taught that trials were like the gymnasium of virtue. Just as athletes strengthen their bodies through difficulty, so we must strengthen our minds by confronting, rather than fleeing, life's challenges. He provided simple tools to his students for handling the storms of life, 3 of which still stand out today. First, clearly distinguish between things in your control and things outside your control. The weather, the past, the opinions of others, all are outside our domain. Our thoughts, our actions, and our reactions are within. Second, embrace each hardship as training for the soul. Just as a blacksmith forges a sword by pounding steel, your character is forged through adversity. Instead of cursing fate, thank it for the opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, more authentic. Third, adopt simplicity and resilience as guiding stars. Don't seek happiness in the fleeting things of the world, but in your own consistent practice of virtue. Courage in the face of fear, temperance in the face of desire, and wisdom in the face of complexity. Epictetus's teachings survived not because they offered comfort, but because they offered clarity, a guide not for avoiding life's storms, but for walking through them, upright and peaceful, no matter the weather. To bring these lessons into your own life, let's try a simple Stoic exercise, just as thousands have since Epictetus's time. Pause for a moment. Think of a current struggle in your life. Maybe it's an argument with someone dear to you, a fear about the future, a disappointment that lingers. Now take pen and paper and write down 2 columns. In the first, what you can control about this situation. In the second, what you cannot. Be honest. That person's behavior? Not in your control. How you respond to them? Entirely your domain. The outcome of your efforts? Not yours to dictate. Your effort itself? Always yours. Now, commit to taking wise action only in the domain of your control. Release the rest. Let go of resentment at the world's indifference. Treasure your own freedom of mind. This is not resignation, it is mastery, the beginning of true freedom. Epictetus once said that, "No man is free who is not master of himself." For him, freedom was not given by law or circumstance. It was achieved through inner discipline. His life, from the bondage of slavery to the noble task of teaching emperors, bears witness to this truth. Chains can bind the body, but no one can chain a disciplined mind. Through poverty, pain, and loss, Epictetus proved this, not with grand gestures, but with quiet daily practice. And so can you. As we step away from his story, reflect on this. We live in a world where anxieties run high and uncertainties multiply. But perhaps the way out is, as Epictetus taught, less about rearranging the outer world, and more about mastering the inner one. If a man born enslaved, crippled, and powerless could transform himself into a giant of resilience and wisdom, then within each of us dwells a similar potential. In our next episode, the circle of Stoicism expands. We'll meet Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king who wielded the power of an empire, yet chose the path of humility, self-mastery, and compassion. If Epictetus faced adversity without power, Marcus will show us how to use power with wisdom. Continue your journey. Let the lessons of Epictetus remind you that true freedom is the work of every day, every choice, every deliberate moment. To master your mind is to shape your destiny. Subscribe to Mind Like Marble, and together, let's carve the kind of strength that not even the harshest winds of fortune can erode. Practice, reflect, persevere, and watch your mind grow as unbreakable as marble, just like Epictetus's.